Imagine that someone asks you a question so simple that almost everyone believes they already know the answer. Can reason lead us to God? For centuries, this single question has divided philosophers, scientists, theologians, and ordinary people alike. Some argue that faith begins where reason ends. Others insist that only reason can reveal the truth. Between these two worlds lies one of the greatest intellectual battles in human history. But what if this conflict never had to exist? What if one man believed that faith and reason were not enemies, but partners in the search for truth? His name was Thomas Aquinas. More than 700 years ago, Aquinas developed a way of thinking so profound that it continues to influence philosophy, ethics, law, politics, and education to this day. Whether you are religious, skeptical, or simply curious, understanding Thomas Aquinas means understanding one of the greatest minds Western civilization has ever produced. Unlike many thinkers who avoided difficult questions, Aquinas welcomed them. He believed that truth has nothing to fear from honest inquiry. If something is true, then questioning it can only lead us closer to understanding it. To him, reason was not the enemy of faith. It was one of its greatest allies. That idea changed history. Before we continue, I have a question for you. Where are you watching from? And what time is it where you are right now? Let me know in the comments below. I genuinely enjoy reading where everyone is joining from and seeing how these conversations connect people from all over the world. And if you enjoy deep explorations of philosophy, history, literature, and the ideas that have shaped civilization, consider subscribing. Every week, we dive into the minds of history's greatest thinkers and uncover the ideas that continue to shape our lives today. Now, let's begin. To understand why Thomas Aquinas was so revolutionary, we need to travel back to the 13th century. Europe was changing. Universities were beginning to flourish. Ancient Greek philosophy was returning to the West after centuries of relative obscurity. The writings of Aristotle, covering logic, science, ethics, politics, and metaphysics, were being translated and studied once again. These discoveries created a crisis. Many believed Aristotle's philosophy threatened religious belief. Others believed philosophy should replace religion altogether. People were being forced to choose between revelation and reason, between faith and logic. Thomas Aquinas refused to make that choice. Instead, he asked a question that would define his life's work. What if both reason and faith ultimately point toward the same truth? It was an astonishing proposal. Rather than rejecting philosophy, Aquinas embraced it. Rather than fearing difficult questions, he pursued them relentlessly. He believed that the human mind was one of the greatest gifts we possess, and that using reason to understand reality was not an act of rebellion. It was part of humanity's purpose. This conviction led him to explore some of the deepest questions ever asked. Why does anything exist at all? Can the existence of God be demonstrated through logic rather than scripture? What makes an action good or evil? Do human beings truly possess free will? What is the soul? Why do we seek happiness? What is the highest purpose of human life? These questions are not relics of the Middle Ages. They remain some of the most important questions we continue to ask today. Every debate about morality, human rights, justice, purpose, consciousness, or the meaning of life echoes ideas that Aquinas helped shape. His influence extends far beyond religion. His philosophy helped lay the foundation for natural law theory, influenced legal traditions, shaped political thought, inspired generations of scholars, and remains central to discussions in ethics and metaphysics. Even those who disagree with him often find themselves responding to questions he first articulated with extraordinary clarity. That is the mark of a truly great philosopher. Yet Aquinas is often misunderstood. Many assume he was simply a theologian writing for believers. But that overlooks the remarkable ambition of his work. He did not merely defend religious doctrines. He attempted to build an entire philosophical understanding of reality itself. He examined existence, knowledge, truth, human nature, morality, freedom, justice, the soul, and the ultimate purpose of life. His goal was nothing less than a complete vision of reality. Agree with him or disagree with him, few thinkers have attempted something so vast. Centuries later, philosophers such as Descartes, Hume, Kant, Nietzsche, and countless others would challenge, refine, or reject aspects of Aquinas' philosophy. Yet none could simply ignore him. His ideas had become too influential, too foundational, too deeply woven into the history of Western thought. Today, we often imagine that science and religion exist in permanent conflict. But Aquinas offers a different perspective. He believed that science explains how the world works, while philosophy asks why anything exists in the first place. Reason investigates the natural world. Faith addresses truths that reason alone cannot fully discover. For Aquinas, these were not competing explanations. They were different paths toward understanding reality. Whether that vision succeeds is a question we will explore throughout this journey. This video is not about convincing you to adopt Thomas Aquinas' conclusions, nor is it about defending or attacking any religious tradition. Our purpose is much simpler: to understand one of history's greatest thinkers on his own terms. Together, we will explore the ideas that made Thomas Aquinas one of the most influential philosophers who ever lived. We will begin by examining his groundbreaking view of faith and reason, a vision that challenged both blind belief and radical skepticism. Then we will explore his famous 5 ways, perhaps the most influential philosophical arguments for God's existence ever written. After that, we will dive into his profound metaphysics, where the distinction between essence and existence reshaped centuries of philosophical thought. We will examine his understanding of the human soul, free will, and what it means to be truly human. We will explore natural law and his vision of morality, a theory that continues to influence legal systems and ethical debates around the world. We will ask why Aquinas believed happiness cannot be found in wealth, power, or pleasure alone, but in what he called the highest good. Finally, we will discover the extraordinary legacy of a philosopher whose influence reaches far beyond the medieval world and continues to shape conversations about ethics, law, politics, education, and the meaning of human existence. Whether you ultimately agree with Thomas Aquinas is entirely up to you. The goal of this journey is not agreement. It is understanding. Because before we can judge the answers of one of history's greatest minds, we must first understand the questions that inspired them. So, dim the lights, leave behind the distractions of the modern world, and prepare to step into an age where philosophy was more than an academic subject. It was a lifelong search for wisdom, truth, and the deepest mysteries of existence. This is the philosophy of Thomas Aquinas. Faith and reason. Can truth be found through both? There is a question that has haunted humanity for thousands of years. A question that has shaped civilizations, started debates, inspired philosophers, and divided entire societies. Can we trust only what we can prove? Or are there truths that exist beyond what the human mind can fully measure? Every person, at some point in life, faces this question. When you look at the stars scattered across the night sky, when you wonder why the universe exists, when you ask what makes something right or wrong, when you search for meaning beyond your daily routine, you're stepping into the same territory that philosophers have explored for centuries. The struggle between faith and reason is not just a religious debate. It is a human struggle. It is the struggle between what we can see and what we cannot see, between certainty and mystery, between the limits of the human mind and the possibility that reality is far greater than we understand. And few thinkers in history confronted this struggle as deeply as Thomas Aquinas. In a world where many believed faith required abandoning reason, and others believed reason would eventually destroy faith, Aquinas offered a revolutionary idea. Truth cannot contradict truth. If something is genuinely true, then honest reasoning will never lead us away from it. For Aquinas, faith was not the enemy of intelligence. Faith was the beginning of a deeper search. Thomas Aquinas lived in the 13th century, a period of enormous intellectual change. Today, we often imagine the Middle Ages as a time when people simply accepted beliefs without questioning. But this picture is incomplete. The medieval world was filled with scholars, debates, universities, and intense intellectual discussions. People were asking profound questions about existence, knowledge, morality, and the nature of reality. And then something happened that transformed European thought. Ancient Greek philosophy returned. The works of Aristotle began entering Western Europe through translations from Arabic and Greek sources. Suddenly, thinkers had access to a powerful philosophical system built on observation, logic, and rational investigation. Aristotle argued that humans could use reason to understand the natural world. He studied biology, politics, ethics, logic, the nature of reality itself. For many scholars, this was a revelation, but also created a problem. If human reason could discover so much truth on its own, what role did faith have? Could philosophy and religion exist together, or would one eventually defeat the other? This was the intellectual battlefield where Aquinas entered. Before Aquinas, one of the most influential thinkers in Christianity was Augustine of Hippo. Augustine emphasized the importance of faith and divine revelation. He believed humanity's understanding was limited and that we needed God's guidance to discover ultimate truth. Aquinas respected Augustine deeply, but he also believed something more needed to be said. Human reason was not a mistake. The ability to think, question, and search for knowledge was itself a gift. If God created the human mind, Aquinas argued, then using that mind could not be an act against God. In fact, it could be a way of moving closer to truth. This idea became the foundation of Aquinas' philosophy. Reason and faith were not two roads moving in opposite directions. They were two paths leading toward the same destination. Imagine two people standing before a massive mountain. One person studies the mountain. They examine its structure, measure its height, analyze its formation, and understand the forces that created it. Another person stands before the mountain and experiences awe, beauty, and wonder. One approaches through investigation, the other through contemplation. Aquinas would argue that both are responding to the same reality. They are simply approaching it from different perspectives. Reason asks, how does something exist? Faith asks, what is the ultimate meaning behind existence? For Aquinas, these questions belong together. But why was this idea so important? Because humans naturally seek more than information. We do not only want to know how things work, we want to know why they matter. Science can explain the process of a human heartbeat, but it does not answer why human life feels valuable. Science can describe the movement of planets, but it does not answer why the universe exists at all. Reason investigates the world around us. But Aquinas believed that certain questions eventually push us beyond the limits of observation. Questions about ultimate purpose, questions about meaning, questions about existence itself. However, Aquinas was not saying that people should simply believe without thinking. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about him. Aquinas was not defending blind faith. He spent his entire life using arguments, logic, and careful reasoning. His famous work, Summa Theologiae, is not simply a collection of religious statements. It is a massive intellectual project where he presents questions, objections, counterarguments, and detailed responses. His method was simple but powerful. First, present the strongest arguments against an idea. Then examine them carefully. Then provide a reasoned answer. Aquinas believed that truth becomes stronger when it survives criticism. A weak belief fears questions. A strong belief welcomes them. This approach makes Aquinas surprisingly relevant today. Modern society often presents a choice. Either you accept science and reason, or you accept faith. Either you think critically, or you believe. But Aquinas would reject this division. He would ask, why assume that reason and faith must be enemies? Why assume that understanding the universe through science removes the possibility of deeper meaning? Why assume that mystery disappears when we gain knowledge? For Aquinas, the more we understand reality, the more profound reality becomes. Think about the universe itself. Modern science has revealed a reality more incredible than ancient humans could imagine. Billions of galaxies, countless stars, a universe governed by mathematical laws. A universe where simple particles eventually formed life, consciousness, and beings capable of asking questions about their own existence. The deeper we look, the more mysterious existence becomes. Aquinas lived centuries before modern cosmology, but he understood something fundamental. Reality is not shallow. Existence itself is a mystery. And philosophy begins when we stop taking that mystery for granted. For Aquinas, the human mind has a natural desire for truth. We are not satisfied with illusions. We investigate. We question. We search. A child asking why repeatedly is demonstrating something deeply human. That desire to understand never disappears. It simply becomes more sophisticated. The philosopher asks, what is reality? The scientist asks, how does nature work? The moral thinker asks, what should we do? The spiritual seeker asks, why are we here? Aquinas believed these questions are connected. They are different expressions of humanity's desire to know the truth. But this raises a deeper question. If reason can discover truth, why do we need faith at all? Why not simply rely on human intelligence? This is where Aquinas made an important distinction. He believed there are truths that reason can discover and truths that require revelation. Reason can investigate the natural world. Reason can explore morality. Reason can discover many things about existence. But Aquinas believed some truths about God and ultimate reality go beyond the ability of human reason alone. Not because reason is useless, but because human understanding has limits. A small window can reveal the outside world, but it cannot reveal everything that exists. The human mind can discover much, but it cannot discover everything. And this idea leads us to one of Aquinas' most important beliefs. The purpose of philosophy is not to eliminate mystery, it is to approach mystery with greater wisdom. Aquinas did not see the unknown as something to fear. He saw it as an invitation to think deeper, to question more honestly, to search more passionately. Because for him, the greatest tragedy was not uncertainty. The greatest tragedy was believing we already knew everything. Throughout history, many people have viewed faith and reason as two opposing forces. One represents belief, the other represents knowledge. One asks us to trust, the other asks us to prove. But Thomas Aquinas believed this conflict came from a misunderstanding of both. For him, faith was not the rejection of thought, and reason was not the rejection of wonder. Both were tools humans could use in the search for truth. But to understand why Aquinas believed this, we must first understand how he viewed human knowledge. Aquinas believed the human mind begins with experience. We do not enter the world with complete knowledge already inside us. Instead, we observe, we learn, we discover. A child touches fire and learns that it burns. A scientist studies nature and discovers its patterns. A philosopher examines existence and searches for deeper principles. For Aquinas, this process shows something remarkable about human beings. We are creatures capable of moving from the visible world toward invisible truths. We begin with what we can see, but our minds naturally ask questions that go beyond what our senses reveal. We see individual things, but we ask what makes something a thing. We see actions, but we ask what makes them good or evil. We see the universe, but we ask why there is a universe at all. According to Aquinas, this movement from observation to understanding is one of the greatest abilities of the human mind. However, Aquinas also understood that reason has limits. This was not an insult toward reason. In fact, recognizing limits is one of the signs of true intelligence. A person who believes they know everything has stopped learning. A person who understands the vastness of what they do not know remains open to discovery. Aquinas believed human reason could discover many truths about reality, but ultimate questions about God and existence could not always be fully reached through human reasoning alone. Not because they were irrational, but because they were greater than the human mind's natural capacity. like trying to understand an entire ocean while standing on the shore. You can study the waves. You can measure the water. You can learn its movements. But the ocean remains far greater than your perspective. This idea separates Aquinas from both extremes. On one side, there are those who reject reason and accept beliefs without examination. Aquinas would reject this. He believed the human intellect was a gift and should be used. On the other side, there are those who believe only what can be physically measured is meaningful. Aquinas would challenge this too. He would ask, can you measure justice? Can you weigh love? Can you place morality inside a laboratory? Some of the most important realities in human life are not physical objects, yet we experience them as meaningful. This is why Aquinas believed philosophy was essential. Philosophy trains the mind to move beyond assumptions. It forces us to examine what we believe and why we believe it. Aquinas did not want people to inherit ideas blindly. He wanted them to understand. A belief without understanding was incomplete, but understanding without humility was dangerous. The search for truth required both intelligence and openness. This perspective also influenced Aquinas' view of science. Although he lived centuries before modern scientific methods, his approach respected the investigation of nature. The world, according to Aquinas, was not something to ignore. It was something to study. Nature itself revealed order. And if the universe possessed order, then studying that order was meaningful. The investigation of creation could reveal something about its source. This is why medieval scholars influenced by Aquinas did not see the study of nature as a threat. They saw it as an opportunity. The universe was not a meaningless collection of events. It was something worthy of careful examination. But Aquinas faced a difficult challenge. If faith and reason are connected, what happens when they appear to disagree? This question remains relevant even today. What happens when scientific discoveries challenge traditional beliefs? What happens when different interpretations of religion conflict with philosophical arguments? Aquinas would argue that genuine truth cannot contradict itself. If two conclusions appear to conflict, then something has been misunderstood. Perhaps the reasoning is incomplete. Perhaps the interpretation is incorrect. Perhaps we need deeper investigation. The answer is not to abandon reason, and it is not to abandon faith. The answer is to continue searching. This attitude reveals something important about Aquinas. He was not a thinker who feared uncertainty. He was a thinker who entered uncertainty with confidence. He believed questions were not threats. They were opportunities. Every question opened a door. Every challenge invited deeper understanding. Every mystery encouraged the human mind to rise higher. One of the most powerful aspects of Aquinas' philosophy is that it begins with something deeply human: wonder. Before philosophy becomes complicated theories and arguments, it begins with a simple feeling: amazement that anything exists at all. Amazement that we are conscious beings capable of understanding the universe. Amazement that reality follows patterns we can discover. For Aquinas, philosophy begins when we stop looking at the world as ordinary, because the ordinary world is filled with extraordinary mysteries. Imagine looking at the night sky. You see countless stars. You understand that light from those stars traveled across unimaginable distances before reaching your eyes. You realize that the atoms in your body were created inside ancient stars billions of years ago. You realize that somehow, through the complexity of nature, the universe produced a being capable of looking back at it and asking, "Why am I here?" For Aquinas, this question represented the highest activity of the human mind, the search for the source of all existence. This brings us to one of Aquinas' most famous ideas. If reason can lead us toward questions about ultimate reality, can reason also provide arguments about God's existence? Can the existence of God be approached philosophically? Can logic reveal something about the foundation of reality? Aquinas believed the answer was yes. He did not begin with a simple demand to believe. He began with observation, the existence of change, the order of the universe, the relationship between cause and effect. the nature of existence itself. From these reflections, he developed what became known as the 5 ways. 5 philosophical arguments attempting to show that belief in God was not merely based on tradition or emotion, but could also be explored through reason. The 5 ways would become some of the most famous arguments in the history of philosophy. Some thinkers would defend them, others would criticize them. Modern philosophers continue debating them. But regardless of whether someone accepts or rejects them, they represent one of humanity's greatest attempts to answer one of the deepest questions ever asked. Why is there something rather than nothing? And that is where our next journey begins. Because after exploring the relationship between faith and reason, we now enter the heart of Aquinas' attempt to use philosophy to investigate the existence of God. The 5 ways. A rational case for God. Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that everything you believed about reality had been built on a single unanswered question. Not politics, not religion, not science. Just one question. Why does anything exist at all? It sounds simple, but the longer you think about it, the stranger it becomes. Look around the room you're sitting in. The walls, the chair, your phone, the air you breathe, even your own body. Everything exists. But have you ever stopped to ask why? Not how exists. Science has given extraordinary answers to that question. It tells us how stars are born, how life evolves, how galaxies form, and how the human brain functions. But Aquinas believed there was another question hiding beneath every scientific explanation. A question science alone cannot answer. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why is there a universe capable of following laws? Why are there laws at all? Why does anything exist rather than absolute nothingness? This is where Thomas Aquinas begins. Not with religion, not with the Bible, not with miracles. He begins with something every human being experiences: reality itself. When many people hear the phrase proof of God, they immediately become skeptical. Some imagine emotional arguments. Others imagine blind belief. Others expect philosophy to suddenly abandon logic. But Aquinas does something completely unexpected. He never asks you to start with faith. Instead, he asks you to start with observation. Look at the world. Look carefully. What do you notice? Things move. Things change. Things begin. Things end. Everything around us appears connected through causes. Nothing seems completely independent. For Aquinas, these ordinary observations contain extraordinary implications. It is important to understand one thing before we continue. Aquinas never claimed his arguments forced belief. He did not believe philosophy could eliminate every doubt. Instead, he believed philosophy could show that belief in God is intellectually reasonable. His famous arguments became known as the 5 ways. They are not 5 different gods. They are 5 different paths leading toward the same conclusion. 5 different observations about reality. 5 attempts to answer the deepest question humanity has ever asked. Before exploring the first argument, imagine standing beside a river. The water flows endlessly. You notice one wave pushing another. The current moves the leaves. The leaves move small branches. Everything is affecting something else. Nothing moves entirely on its own. Now expand that image. Cars move because engines run. Engines run because fuel burns. Fuel burns because chemical reactions occur. Those reactions occur because matter behaves according to physical laws. Every explanation seems connected to another explanation. Aquinas asks a fascinating question. Can this chain continue forever? Or must there ultimately be something that explains why anything moves at all? This question leads to the first way. The first way, motion. The first argument begins with one of the simplest facts imaginable. Things change. Ice becomes water. Children become adults. Seeds become trees. Stars are born. Stasti. Nothing remains exactly the same forever. For Aristotle, whom Aquinas admired deeply, movement meant more than physical motion. It meant change itself. Anything moving from potential to actuality. A seed has the potential to become a tree. Learning has the potential to become knowledge. An empty canvas has the potential to become a painting. Everything is constantly moving from possibility into reality. But Aquinas noticed something interesting. Nothing gives itself a potential it does not already possess. A cold cup of coffee does not become hot by itself. Something must heat it. A blank page does not become a novel by itself. Someone writes it. Potential becomes reality because something already actual causes the change. Then Aquinas asks the next question. If everything is changed by something else, what began the entire chain? Many people misunderstand this argument. They imagine Aquinas asking, who pushed the first domino? But that is not quite his point. He is asking something deeper. Why is change happening at all? Imagine a train made of 100 connected carriages. Each carriage moves because the carriage in front pulls it. But what if there were no engine? Would the train move? No. No matter how many carriages you add, movement never begins without something capable of initiating it. According to Aquinas, reality itself resembles this train. Every changing thing depends on another changing thing. Eventually, he argues, there must be something that does not receive its ability to act from something else, something that is not merely changed, something capable of being the ultimate source of change. This is what Aquinas calls the unmoved mover. Today, critics immediately respond. But what about the Big Bang? Interestingly, Aquinas never argued against a beginningless universe. In fact, he believed philosophy alone could not prove the universe had a beginning in time. That surprises many people. His argument is not about what happened billions of years ago. It is about why change exists at this very moment. Even if the universe had existed forever, Aquinas would still ask, why is anything capable of change at all? The argument is philosophical, not scientific. Science explains processes. Aquinas asks why there are processes in the first place. Whether you accept his conclusion or not, notice something remarkable. Aquinas is not arguing from ignorance. He is not saying, we don't understand this, therefore God. Instead, he is asking whether reality itself requires an ultimate explanation. That distinction is incredibly important. The second way, cause. Now imagine seeing a beautiful wooden table. You immediately know someone made it. Wood did not arrange itself. Tools shaped it. Craftsmanship gave it form. Every object around us has a cause. Your house, your phone, your clothes, even your own existence depends upon countless causes. Parents, nature, history, the universe itself. Everything appears connected through causes. This observation inspired Aquinas' second argument. Nothing causes itself. A book cannot write itself. A sculpture cannot carve itself. Something cannot exist before it exists in order to create itself. Therefore, every effect points toward a cause. But then another question appears. If every cause depends upon an earlier cause, does this chain continue forever? Again, Aquinas is not imagining an endless line stretching backward through history. He is thinking about dependence. Imagine holding a paintbrush. The brush moves because your hand moves. Your hand moves because muscles contract. Muscles contract because nerves fire. Nerves fire because living biological systems operate. Each level depends on another. Take away the source of activity. Everything else stops immediately. Aquinas argues that reality itself is like this. The causes we observe depend upon deeper causes. Eventually, there must be a cause that depends upon nothing outside itself. Not because it happened first in time, but because it exists without needing another explanation. This he calls the first cause. Immediately, another objection arises. If everything needs a cause, then who caused God? Perhaps you've heard this question before. Aquinas would answer that his argument never claimed everything needs a cause. Only things whose existence depends on something else. The first cause, by definition, does not depend upon another cause. If it did, it would not truly be first. You may disagree with that reasoning. Many philosophers have. But notice how carefully Aquinas defines his argument. Because if movement and causation point towards something beyond themselves, there's an even deeper mystery waiting beneath them. A mystery so profound that it has puzzled philosophers from Aristotle to Heidegger. It is the mystery of existence itself. Take a moment and look around you. the chair beneath you, the walls surrounding you, the trees outside your window, the people you love, your own hands. They all share one extraordinary fact. They exist. It sounds almost too obvious to mention. Of course they exist. You can see them, touch them, experience them. But Thomas Aquinas wanted us to pause before accepting that answer. Because the greatest philosophical questions often hide behind the things we take for granted. We spend our lives asking how things work. How does the heart beat? How do galaxies form? How does consciousness emerge? These are remarkable questions. But Aquinas believed there was another question hiding underneath every scientific explanation. Not how, but why. Why does anything exist at all? Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that absolutely nothing existed. No stars, no planets, no time, no space, no matter, no light, no darkness, nothing. Not an empty universe. Because an empty universe is still something. Imagine absolute nothingness. No laws of physics. No energy. No possibilities. Nothing whatsoever. Now ask yourself a simple question. Why is that not reality? Why is there a universe instead of absolute nothingness? Why is there something rather than nothing? This question may sound abstract, but once it enters your mind, it becomes almost impossible to escape. It changes the way you look at everything. Every tree becomes mysterious. Every person becomes improbable. Every breath becomes something that did not have to exist. And this realization became the foundation of Aquinas' third way. Unlike his previous arguments, this one does not begin with motion. It does not begin with causes. It begins with existence itself. Aquinas noticed that everything in the world shares a common feature. Everything appears temporary. People are born, and they die. Stars ignite, and eventually collapse. Empires rise, and disappear into history. Even mountains slowly erode. Nothing in our experience seems permanent. Everything appears capable of existing or not existing. Philosophers call this contingency. A contingent thing is something whose existence is not necessary. It exists, but it could have failed to exist. You could have been born in another century, or perhaps never born at all. The book on your shelf might never have been written. The tree outside your house might never have grown. Everything around us seems to depend upon countless conditions that could easily have been different. This simple observation led Aquinas toward one of the boldest questions in the history of philosophy. If everything we encounter is contingent, then what ultimately explains why anything exists at all? To understand Aquinas' answer, imagine walking through an ancient forest. Towering trees surround you. Some have stood for hundreds of years. Others have fallen to the ground, slowly returning to the earth from which they came. Birds are born. They build nests. They raise their young. Then, one day, they disappear. The same story unfolds everywhere. Flowers bloom and wither. Civilizations rise and collapse. Stars ignite and eventually exhaust their fuel. Everything we know appears to share the same destiny. Nothing in our experience lasts forever. For Aquinas, this wasn't merely an observation about nature. It was a clue pointing toward one of the deepest mysteries of existence. Philosophers call these things contingent beings. A contingent being is something that does not have to exist. It exists, but it could have failed to exist. Think about your own life. There was a time when you did not exist. Your parents met through countless circumstances. A different decision, a different place, a different moment, and you might never have been born. The same is true for every person who has ever lived. Our existence depends upon an extraordinary chain of events stretching back through history. None of us exist by necessity. We exist because countless conditions happen to align. The same is true for every tree, every mountain, every planet, and perhaps, Aquinas wondered, even the universe itself. This realization led him to ask a question that still challenges philosophers today. If everything is contingent, can contingency alone explain existence? Imagine entering an enormous library. Every book you open has a note inside saying, "This book was borrowed from another person." Curious, you search for the owner. Each person points to someone else. "I borrowed it too." Again, and again and again. Eventually, you would stop asking who borrowed the book. You would begin asking a different question. Who actually owns it? Because if everyone is only borrowing it, then somewhere there must be someone who possesses it by their own right. Otherwise, the chain explains nothing. Aquinas believed existence presents a similar puzzle. If every being receives existence from something else, if every existence is borrowed, then what is the ultimate source from which existence is borrowed? He concluded that there must be at least one being whose existence is not borrowed. One being that exists by its very nature, not because anything caused it, not because anything sustains it, but because it simply is. Aquinas called this the necessary being. And this necessary being is what he identified as God. Notice something important. Aquinas is not saying, we don't know the answer, therefore God. That will be a weak argument. Instead, he is asking whether an infinite chain of dependent beings can ever provide a complete explanation for why anything exists. Whether you agree or disagree, it is an astonishing philosophical question, one that remains debated more than 7 centuries later. But Aquinas wasn't finished. He believed reality contained another clue, one hidden within our everyday experience. Think about the words we use every day. Beautiful, good, wise, just. We constantly compare things. One athlete is faster. One musician is more talented. One act is more compassionate. One leader is wiser. Human beings naturally think in degrees. We recognize that some things possess greater excellence than others. But Aquinas asked something few people ever consider. Compare to what? How do we know one thing is better than another? How do we recognize greater wisdom, greater beauty, greater justice? This question becomes the foundation of the fourth way. Aquinas believed that whenever we recognize degrees of perfection, our minds are implicitly comparing them to an ideal. Imagine trying to judge whether a line is straight without ever knowing what straight means. Or try to identify a perfect circle if no concept of a circle existed. Comparison requires a standard. For Aquinas, goodness points toward perfect goodness. Truth points toward perfect truth. Beauty points toward perfect beauty, not merely as ideas inside our minds, but as realities grounded in something ultimate. That ultimate perfection, he argued, is God. Today, many philosophers reject this conclusion. Some argue that standards of beauty and morality are created by cultures. Others believe they evolved through biology and social cooperation. Aquinas would welcome those objections, because his real question remains deeper. Why do humans possess this relentless desire to move toward truth, goodness, and beauty at all? Why are we never completely satisfied? Why we continue searching for something higher? For Aquinas, that longing itself revealed something extraordinary about human nature. Then come the fifth way, perhaps the most famous, and certainly the most misunderstood. Look carefully at the natural world. A tiny acorn grows into an oak tree, never into a whale, never into a mountain. The planets move according to remarkably consistent laws. The seasons arrive with astonishing regularity. DNA carries information with breathtaking precision. The universe is not random chaos. It is astonishingly ordered. Aquinas noticed that even things without intelligence consistently behave in ways that achieve particular outcomes. A seed has no mind, yet it grows toward becoming a tree. The heart does not consciously decide to pump blood, yet it fulfills its purpose. The laws of gravity do not think, yet they operate with perfect consistency. Why? Why does unintelligent matter behave according to intelligible patterns? Aquinas compared nature to an arrow flying toward its target. The arrow reaches its destination, not because it understands where it is going, but because an archer has directed it. Likewise, Aquinas argued that the order found throughout nature points toward an ordering intelligence, an ultimate source of purpose behind the universe. Centuries later, critics like David Hume challenged this reasoning. Charles Darwin explained how natural selection could account for biological complexity without requiring direct design. Modern cosmology continues exploring why the universe possesses the laws it does. The debate continues, yet the question itself refuses to disappear. Why is the universe understandable? Why does mathematics describe reality so astonishingly well? Why is there order instead of chaos? These questions remain among the deepest mysteries in both philosophy and science. Whether Aquinas ultimately succeeded is a matter of personal judgment. But perhaps success was never the greatest achievement of the five ways. Their greatest achievement is that they force us to slow down, to notice the extraordinary hidden inside the ordinary. Movement, cause, existence, goodness, order. Essence and existence. What does it mean to exist? Imagine holding a photograph of someone you've never met. You can see their face, their smile, the color of their eyes. You can even imagine the sound of their voice. For a moment, it almost feels as though you know them. But then someone tells you, this person never existed. Suddenly, everything changes. The photograph may have looked real. The details may have been convincing. You could describe the person perfectly. And yet, there was never anyone there. Thomas Aquinas believed this simple realization reveals one of the greatest mysteries in all of philosophy. Because knowing what something is not the same as knowing that it exists. At first, the distinction sounds almost meaningless. Of course things exist. You're reading these words. The room around you is real. The earth beneath your feet is real. Why complicate something so obvious? But Aquinas asks us to slow down. Because philosophy often begins where common sense ends. We become so accustomed to existence that we stop noticing how astonishing it really is. We spend our lives asking questions like, what is water? What is justice? What is consciousness? What is love? But Aquinas wanted to ask a different question. Not, what is it? But, why does it exist at all? Imagine an architect designing a magnificent cathedral. Every detail is complete. The towers, the stained glass, the marble floors, the wooden doors. Every measurement exists perfectly within the blueprint. The cathedral is fully understood. Its essence is complete. But there is one problem. It has never been built. It exists only as an idea. Nothing stands on the land where the cathedral was imagined. No walls, no windows, no beds. The blueprint tells us what the cathedral is, but it does not make the cathedral exist. This simple example became one of Aquinas' greatest philosophical insights. He argued that every created thing possesses two different aspects: its essence and its existence. Essence answers the question, what is this thing? Existence answers another question, is this thing real? Those two questions seem almost identical, but Aquinas insisted they are profoundly different. You can understand the essence of a unicorn, a horse, a single horn, perhaps a flowing silver mane. You know exactly what unicorn is. Yet that knowledge does not place one in the forest outside your home. Its essence can exist inside your mind, without existing in reality. The same applies to dragons, perfect cities, imaginary planets, entire fictional worlds. Our minds are capable of understanding countless essences that possess no existence whatsoever. This distinction fascinated Aquinas because it revealed something extraordinary about the universe. Everything around us possesses an essence, but none of those essences explain why they actually exist. Take a simple tree. Biology can describe it perfectly. Its roots absorb water. Its leaves perform photosynthesis. Its cells divide. Its branches grow towards sunlight. Science tells us what a tree is and how it functions. But Aquinas asks another question. Why does this particular tree exist instead of never existing at all? Biology explains its growth, but growth already assumes existence. Before something can grow, it must first be. Existence itself remains unexplained. And this puzzled Aquinas more than almost anything else. The deeper he looked into reality, the stranger it became. Nothing seemed to contain the explanation for its own existence. A tree depends upon a seed. The seed depends upon another tree. That tree depends upon sunlight. Sunlight depends upon a star. The star depends upon physical laws. Everything appears connected. Everything depends. Everything receives existence rather than possessing it independently. It is almost as though existence is constantly being given, rather than produced. This realization transformed Aquinas' entire philosophy. He began to see every object, every animal, every human being as something radically mysterious, not because we fail to understand how they work, but because their very existence is astonishing. The greatest miracle was not that the universe behaved according to laws. The greatest miracle was that there was a universe at all. Think about your own existence. Before you were born, the universe continued without you. Billions of years passed. Stars formed. Continents drifted. Countless generations lived and died. Then suddenly, you appeared. You did not choose your parents. You did not choose your century. You did not choose your DNA. You simply found yourself existing. Have you ever wondered why? Not why you were born to your family. Not why history unfolded as it did, but why there's a you at all. Aquinas believed this question reveals the deepest mystery of human life. Because none of us explain ourselves. We receive existence. We do not create it. Centuries later, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger would call this the forgotten question of philosophy. Why is there something rather than nothing? Although Heidegger approached the problem differently, he recognized the same astonishing mystery Aquinas had seen centuries earlier. Most people never ask why existence exists. They simply assume it. Aquinas refused to make that assumption. He believed existence itself deserved explanation, and that belief would become the foundation of his metaphysics. Imagine a lamp plugged into a wall. The light shines brilliantly, but remove the electricity, and the lamp immediately goes dark. The lamp does not produce light independently. It receives it. Aquinas believed created beings are similar. They possess existence, but they do not generate existence from themselves. Like the lamp receiving electricity, everything receives the act of existing from a deeper source. But what could that source be? That question would become the center of Aquinas' entire philosophy, and answering it required one of the boldest ideas ever proposed in the history of metaphysics. Because Aquinas believed there must exist one reality in which essence and existence are not separate, one being whose very nature is existence itself. And if such a being exists, it would be unlike anything else in the universe. Imagine standing beside the ocean at sunrise. The horizon stretches farther than your eyes can follow. The waves arrive one after another. No two are exactly alike. Some rise high before crashing against the shore. Others disappear almost as soon as they are born. Yet despite their differences, every wave shares something in common. None of them exist independently. Every wave owes its existence to the ocean. Remove the ocean, and every wave disappears. Thomas Aquinas believed the universe resembles those waves far more than we realize. Every mountain, every star, every living creature, every human being possesses its own unique identity. Yet none possesses the power to explain its own existence. Everything exists, but nothing we encounter appears to be the reason that existence itself exists. This realization led Aquinas toward one of the most daring conclusions in the history of philosophy. He argued that there must be one reality unlike everything else we experience, a reality that does not merely have existence, but is existence. To understand why this idea mattered so much, imagine a candle burning in a dark room. Its flame gives light, but the candle itself is slowly consumed. Eventually, the flame disappears. The candle's light was never permanent. It depended on wax, oxygen, and countless physical conditions. Everything in our world is similar. Nothing remains forever. Nothing appears completely self-sustaining. Even stars, which seem eternal compared to human life, eventually exhaust their fuel. Galaxies collide. Atoms decay. Time changes everything. For Aquinas, this suggested a profound truth. If every existing thing depends on something else, then existence cannot ultimately rest upon beings that are themselves dependent. Otherwise, reality would never possess a sufficient explanation. There must be something fundamentally different, not another object in the universe, not a larger star, not a more powerful force, but a completely different kind of reality. A reality whose very essence is to exist. Aquinas called this being itself, not one being among many, but the source from which every other being receives existence. This idea is sometimes expressed by the Latin phrase ipsum esse subsistens, the sheer act of existing itself. It is one of the most distinctive ideas in all of Aquinas' philosophy. At first, this may sound abstract, but think about it another way. Imagine the moon on a clear night. It shines beautifully. For thousands of years, people admired its light. Yet we now know something important. The moon does not produce its own light. It reflects the light of the sun. Its brightness is real, but is received. Aquinas believed all created things are like the moon. Their existence is real, but it is received rather than self-generated. Everything participates in existence. Nothing, except the necessary being, possesses existence by its own nature. This perspective completely transforms how we look at the world. A tree is no longer merely a biological organism. A human being is no longer merely a collection of cells. A star is no longer merely a sphere of burning gas. Each becomes something astonishing. Each is a participant in the mystery of existence itself. For Aquinas, existence was not ordinary. It was the greatest gift imaginable. The greatest mystery was not that the universe contains extraordinary things. The greatest mystery was that there is a universe at all. Modern philosophers have approached this mystery in different ways. Some argue that existence is simply a brute fact. The universe exists, and there is no deeper explanation. Others continue searching for a fundamental principle beneath physical reality. Quantum physics explores the smallest building blocks of matter. Cosmology investigates the earliest moments of the universe. Yet even the most advanced scientific theories eventually encounter a familiar question. Why do these laws exist? Why is there a reality governed by elegant mathematical principles rather than absolute nothingness? Science continues pushing the boundary outward. Philosophy continues asking what lies beyond the boundary itself. Aquinas believed both pursuits are valuable. One explains the workings of the universe. The other asks why there is a universe to explain. This is why Aquinas never viewed philosophy and science as enemies. Each begins with wonder. Each searches for truth. Each reveals another layer of reality. The scientist studies the stars. The philosopher asks why stars exist. Neither question cancels the other. Together, they deepen our understanding of existence. But Aquinas' philosophy was never merely about the universe. It was also about you. Because if human beings receive existence, what exactly are we? Are we nothing more than physical matter arranged in astonishingly complex ways? Or is there something within us that cannot be reduced to chemistry alone? Why are we capable of abstract thought? Why do we search for truth? Why do we recognize beauty? Why do we ask questions no other creature seems able to ask? Aquinas believed these questions point toward another great mystery. Not simply the mystery of existence, but the mystery of the human person. To understand that mystery, we must turn our attention inward, beyond the body, beyond the senses, toward what Aquinas believed was the deepest dimension of human nature, the soul. Because before we can understand what it means to live well, we must first understand what we truly are. And that is where our journey leads next. The human soul. What are you really? Have you ever looked into a mirror and wonder who is looking back? Not your name, not your job, not your age, not the story you've spent your life telling yourself, but you, the one who experiences every joy, every fear, every heartbreak, every hope. Strip away your clothes, your memories, your possessions, even your body for a moment in thought. What remains? For thousands of years, this question has haunted humanity. Are we simply highly intelligent animals? Our thoughts, nothing more than electrical signals racing through billions of neurons? Or is there something within us that cannot be measured, cannot be weighed, cannot be reduced to chemistry? Modern science has mapped the brain with astonishing precision. We can watch neurons fire. We can observe memories forming. We can even identify regions responsible for language, emotion, and decision-making. And yet, one mystery refuses to disappear. Why is there an inner experience at all? Why does the universe contain beings who don't merely exist, but know they exist? A rock exists. A tree exists. A dog experiences the world. But only human beings ask questions like these. Who am I? Why am I here? What happens when I die? Thomas Aquinas believed these questions reveal something extraordinary about human nature. Not because they prove anything by themselves, but because they point toward a reality unlike anything else in the physical world. For Aquinas, the human being was neither an angel trapped in a body, nor a machine made only of flesh. We were something far more mysterious, a union of body and soul. But before we can understand what Aquinas meant by soul, we must first forget many of the modern images that immediately come to mind. When people hear the word soul, they often imagine a ghost, a transparent figure floating away after death, something hidden inside the body like a tiny passenger. Aquinas rejected this image completely. To him, the soul was not a second body living inside the first. It was not an invisible object occupying physical space. Instead, he borrowed an idea from Aristotle that would transform medieval philosophy. Everything in nature, Aristotle argued, is made of matter and form. Matter is what something is made from. Form is what makes it the kind of thing it is. Imagine a block of marble. By itself, it possesses endless possibilities. A skilled sculptor begins carving. Slowly, a human figure emerges. The marble remains the same material, but its form has changed completely. The form gives shape, identity, and purpose. Without form, the marble is only raw potential. With form, it becomes a masterpiece. Aquinas believed human beings are similar. Your body is the matter. Your soul is the form, not something added afterward, but the very principle that makes you a living human being rather than a collection of biological parts. Think about a piano. Every key is perfectly assembled. Every string is in place. The wood is polished. The instrument appears complete. But if no one ever plays it, its music remains only potential. The piano possesses everything necessary for music, yet something essential is still missing. Likewise, a human body without a soul would not simply be a person missing one component. It would no longer be a living human being at all. For Aquinas, the soul is what gives life, unity, intelligence, and identity to the body. It is not trapped inside the body. It is the reason the body is alive in the first place. This understanding changes everything, because it means you're not a soul using a body like a driver using a car, nor are you merely a body producing the illusion of consciousness. You're a single unified being, body and soul together. One person, one reality. And yet, human beings possess abilities unlike any other living creature. Animals perceive, they remember, they feel pleasure and pain. But humans can do something astonishing. We can think about things we have never seen. We can understand justice, even though justice has no color, no weight, and no physical shape. We can imagine infinity. We can write symphonies, solve mathematical equations, debate morality, wonder about eternity, ask whether God exists. Aquinas believed these powers reveal that the human intellect reaches beyond the material world in a unique way. And if that is true, then perhaps there is something about the human soul that cannot simply be explained by matter alone. That possibility would become one of the most influential and controversial ideas in the history of philosophy. If Aquinas is right, then every human being is far more mysterious than they appear. You're not simply a body walking through the world, nor are you a spirit temporarily trapped inside flesh. You are a remarkable union of both. a single being whose physical and spiritual dimensions are so deeply connected that separating them changes what it means to be human. This was one of Aquinas' most important insights, because it avoided two extremes that continue to shape modern thinking. On one side is materialism, the belief that human beings are nothing more than matter. According to this view, love is simply chemistry. Hope is merely electrical activity. Consciousness is an accident produced by billions of neurons interacting inside the brain. Everything we call the mind eventually becomes a physical process. On the other side is the opposite extreme, the idea that the body is unimportant, that our true self exists completely apart from it. Aquinas rejected both. He believed the body matters profoundly. It is not a prison. It is not an obstacle to overcome. It is an essential part of who you are. Think about your closest friendships. Could they exist without words? Without smiles? Without hugs? Without shared experiences? Love itself may be invisible, but it reaches us through the body. Every act of kindness, every work of art, every song ever written, every handshake, every tear, every sacrifice. The human body is not separate from these experiences. It is the means through which they become real. For Aquinas, this is why caring for the body is not opposed to caring for the soul. The two belong together. But there's something unique about the human soul that fascinated Aquinas more than anything else: our ability to know truth. Animals learn through instinct and experience. A wolf learns how to hunt. A bird learns where to build its nest. A dolphin learns through observation and memory. These are remarkable abilities. Yet human intelligence appears different. You can think about numbers that have no physical existence. You can understand justice without ever seeing justice itself. You can imagine another galaxy you have never visited. You can contemplate eternity. You can even question your own existence. In this very moment, your mind is capable of stepping back and observing itself. Very few experiences are stranger than that. You can think about your own thoughts. You can question your own beliefs. You can change your own character. Aquinas believed this ability pointed towards something extraordinary. The human intellect was not limited to the material objects around it. It could grasp universal truths. It could understand ideas that possess no physical shape. This is why he believed the human soul possesses a spiritual dimension unlike anything else in the natural world. Then comes another question. If the soul gives life to the body, what happens when the body dies? For Aquinas, death was never natural in the sense of being what human beings were ultimately made for. Death is the separation of body and soul. It is the breaking apart of a unity that was meant to exist together. This is why death feels so unsettling, not only because we fear it, but because something within us recognizes that separation is not the fulfillment of human life. Whether one agrees with Aquinas or not, his observation captures something deeply human. Across cultures, across civilizations, across thousands of years, human beings have struggled to accept death as merely another ordinary event. We mourn, we remember, we ask what comes next. These questions reveal that death is not simply a biological event. It is also an existential mystery. Modern neuroscience has made extraordinary discoveries about the brain. We know far more today than Aquinas ever could have imagined. Scientists can identify regions responsible for speech, emotion, memory, and decision-making. Brain injuries can dramatically alter personality. Diseases like Alzheimer's can erase decades of memories. These discoveries have led many people to conclude that consciousness is nothing more than brain activity. Aquinas never had access to this evidence, but his central question remains surprisingly relevant. Even if every thought corresponds to activity in the brain, does that explain why subjective experience exists at all? Why should electrical signals feel like anything from the inside? Why is there an inner world of experience? This puzzle is known today as the hard problem of consciousness. Philosophers and neuroscientists continue debating it. Some believe science will eventually solve it. Others argue it points toward realities we still do not understand. Although Aquinas lived centuries before this debate, he recognized something similar. The human person cannot be understood simply by examining physical parts. There is a dimension of human existence that invites philosophical reflection as much as scientific investigation. Perhaps this explains why we're never satisfied with merely surviving. Human beings do not simply seek food and shelter. We seek meaning. We create art. We compose music. We write poetry. We build civilizations. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We ask questions that seem to have no practical benefit. Why? Because something within us longs for more than survival. Aquinas believed this longing was not an accident. It reflected the deepest orientation of the human soul, a desire for truth, a desire for goodness, a desire for perfect happiness, a desire ultimately directed toward the highest reality itself. This understanding transformed Aquinas' view of human dignity. Every person possesses value, not because of wealth, not because of intelligence, not because of power, but because every human being possesses a rational soul capable of knowing truth and choosing the good. Whether king or beggar, child or elder, every life carries extraordinary worth. Centuries later, this idea would influence discussions of human rights, education, justice, and the moral equality of persons throughout the Western world. But possessing intelligence creates another challenge. If we are capable of understanding truth, are we also free to reject it? If we can recognize the good, why do we so often choose evil? Why do intelligent people make destructive decisions? Why do we act against our own best interests? This question troubled Aquinas as much as any philosopher before him, because understanding the soul is only the beginning. The next mystery concerns choice. What does it truly mean to be free? Do we genuinely control our actions? Or are our decisions shaped by forces beyond our awareness? That question leads us directly into one of the most important debates in philosophy. Free will. Are you truly free? Right now, you believe you chose to watch this video. You decided to press play. You decided to keep listening. You decided to stay. But what if every choice you've ever made was never truly yours? What if your personality, your desires, your fears, your ambitions were all set in motion long before you were born? Your parents shaped you. Your childhood shaped you. Your culture shaped you. Your education shaped you. Even your genes influenced the person you become. So here's the question that has haunted philosophers for centuries. Are you actually free, or do you only feel free? It is one of the oldest debates in human history. If every event has a cause, then surely every decision has a cause as well. If every thought in your mind is produced by the activity of your brain, then isn't every choice simply the inevitable result of biology and circumstance? Many modern thinkers have answered, yes. According to strict determinism, every decision you make is the unavoidable consequence of everything that came before it. If someone could know every law of nature, every particle in your brain, every influence throughout your life, they could, in theory, predict every choice you would ever make. If that is true, then freedom is only an illusion. But Thomas Aquinas refused to accept this conclusion, because if human beings are not truly free, then something extraordinary disappears from the human story. Responsibility. How can we praise courage? If courage was unavoidable, how can we condemn cruelty? If cruelty was predetermined, how can justice exist? If no one could ever have acted differently? For Aquinas, these were not merely philosophical puzzles. They were questions that determined whether morality itself could survive. To understand Aquinas' answer, we must first understand what he meant by freedom. Today, many people define freedom as the ability to do whatever they want. Freedom means having no rules, no limits, no obligations. The more choices we have, the freer we become. It sounds convincing, but Aquinas believed this definition confuses freedom with impulse. Imagine a ship crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Its captain decides that maps are restrictive, compasses are limiting, the stars are unnecessary. He sails wherever the wind happens to carry him. Is that freedom? Or is it drifting? Now imagine another captain. She understands the stars, studies the ocean, knows exactly where she wants to go. She follows a course. She makes deliberate decisions. She reaches her destination. According to Aquinas, which captain is truly free? The second, because genuine freedom is not the absence of direction. It is the ability to choose the right direction. This is one of Aquinas' most profound insights. Freedom is not simply choosing. Freedom is choosing well. Think about a concert pianist. When you watch them perform, their hands seem almost effortless. Every movement appears natural, beautiful, free. But that freedom did not appear overnight. It was earned. Thousands of hours of disciplined practice transformed limitation into mastery. The beginner possesses countless possibilities. The master possesses genuine freedom, because excellence expands our ability to act. The same, Aquinas believed, is true of the moral life. Every good habit makes us more capable of choosing wisely. Every destructive habit makes us less free. Consider addiction. Someone addicted to gambling, alcohol, or drugs often insists they are free. I can stop whenever I want. But reality tells another story. The addiction slowly takes control. Choices become compulsions. Freedom begins to disappear. For Aquinas, this reveals an uncomfortable truth. Not everything we desire makes us freer. Sometimes our desires enslave us. This is why Aquinas believed reason plays such an important role in human freedom. Animals follow instinct. A hungry lion hunts. A frightened deer runs. Their actions are guided largely by natural impulses. Human beings also possess instincts. We experience hunger, fear, pleasure, pain, but we possess something more. We can step back from our desires. We can question them. A hungry person can choose to fast. An angry person can choose forgiveness. A frightened firefighter can run into a burning building to save a stranger. This ability astonished Aquinas, because it suggested that reason could guide desire rather than simply obey it. Our instincts whisper, our intellect judges, our will chooses. Together, they make moral freedom possible. Yet freedom creates another mystery. If God knows everything, including every future choice, are we still free? This question challenged theologians long before Aquinas was born, and it continues to provoke debate today. If tomorrow's decisions are already known, can they truly be called choices? Aquinas approached the problem differently. He argued that God's knowledge does not force human decisions. Knowing is not the same as causing. Imagine standing on a mountain overlooking a winding road. You watch two cars approach an intersection. From your perspective, you already see what each driver will do. But your knowledge does not cause their actions. You observe them. You do not determine them. Aquinas believed God's knowledge transcends time itself. Rather than predicting the future, God sees all moments simultaneously. Human beings still choose freely within time. God simply knows those choices without eliminating their freedom. Whether one accepts this solution remains a matter of debate. But it demonstrates Aquinas' determination to preserve both divine knowledge and genuine human responsibility. For Aquinas, freedom was never a burden to escape. It was one of humanity's greatest gifts, because every meaningful act depends upon it. Love cannot be forced. Generosity cannot be programmed. Forgiveness has value precisely because it could have been withheld. Every act of virtue begins with a choice, and every choice slowly shapes the person we become. The question is no longer, are you free? The question becomes, what kind of person are your choices creating? Imagine your life as a path through a vast forest. Every decision you make becomes another step. At first, the trail is almost invisible. One choice seems insignificant. One lie, one act of kindness, one moment of courage, one moment of fear. None of them appear powerful enough to change the course of your life. But years later, you look back and realize those small decisions became habits. Those habits became your character, and your character quietly shaped your destiny. Thomas Aquinas believed this is how freedom truly works. We often imagine freedom as dramatic moments, life-changing decisions, crossroads that determine everything. But according to Aquinas, the most important choices are usually the smallest ones. Because every choice trains the will. Every action teaches your soul what to desire. Slowly, almost invisibly, you become the kind of person your choices have been creating all along. This is why Aquinas cared so deeply about virtue. Today, the word virtue can sound old-fashioned. It may bring to mind strict rules or moral lectures. But Aquinas meant something much richer. A virtue is not simply a good action. It is a stable habit of choosing the good. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. At first, every movement requires effort. You wobble. You lose balance. You overcorrect. But after enough practice, balance becomes natural. You no longer think about every movement. The skill becomes part of who you are. Aquinas believed moral excellence develops in the same way. A truthful person doesn't struggle to tell the truth every single time. An honest life gradually forms an honest character. A courageous person isn't someone who never feels fear. A courageous person has trained themselves to act well even when fear is present. Freedom, then, is not simply the ability to choose. It is the ability to choose well again and again until goodness becomes part of your character. But if that is true, another question arises. Why do intelligent people still make destructive choices? Why do we knowingly act against our own interests? Why does someone betray the people they love? Why do we procrastinate when we know the consequences? Why do we chase pleasures that ultimately leave us emptier than before? Aquinas did not believe human beings choose evil simply because they love evil. Instead, he argued something more subtle. Every choice aims at some perceived good. Even harmful decisions usually promise something attractive. A lie promises safety. Revenge promises satisfaction. Greed promises security. Laziness promises comfort. The problem is not that people seek the good. The problem is that we often mistake temporary goods for our highest good. We choose what feels good now, instead of what is genuinely good in the long run. For Aquinas, this is one of the great tragedies of human freedom. Not that we desire happiness, but that we so often search for it in the wrong places. Consider a person climbing a mountain. Halfway up, they become exhausted. A smooth path appears leading downward. It seems easier, safer, more comfortable. They take it. For a while, the journey feels effortless. Only later do they realize they have wandered farther from the summit. Aquinas believed many of our choices resemble that path. The easier option often appears attractive. The immediate reward feels satisfying. Yet not every pleasant road leads to the destination we truly seek. Freedom requires more than desire. It requires wisdom, the ability to recognize which paths actually lead to human flourishing. This is where reason becomes essential. Reason is like the navigator of a ship. The will is the captain. The passions are the wind. Without wind, the ship cannot move. But without a navigator, the wind may carry it toward disaster. Aquinas never believed emotions were enemies. Fear protects us. Joy enriches life. Compassion moves us to help others. Love gives life meaning. The passions are not evil. They simply need guidance. When reason and desire work together, freedom becomes creative. When desire overwhelms reason, freedom slowly turns into slavery. Centuries later, psychology would discover something remarkably similar. Habits shape behavior. Repeated actions strengthen neural pathways. Character is not built in a single moment, but through countless repeated decisions. Aquinas could not have known the language of neuroscience, yet he understood a timeless truth. We become what we repeatedly choose. Your future self is being formed by today's smallest decisions. This insight also transformed Aquinas' understanding of responsibility. Every choice matters, not because every choice changes the world, but because every choice changes you. Each decision leaves a mark upon the soul. You're never exactly the same person after making an important moral decision. Whether through honesty or deception, generosity or selfishness, forgiveness or resentment. Your character is constantly being shaped. Freedom is not merely about creating a future. It is about creating yourself. This is why Aquinas believed true freedom is inseparable from truth. If you misunderstand reality, your choices become distorted. Imagine trying to navigate a city using a broken map. No matter how sincerely you follow it, you will become lost. In the same way, false ideas about happiness often produce unhappy lives. Wealth can be good, power can be useful, pleasure can be meaningful. But Aquinas insisted that none of these can satisfy the deepest desires of the human heart by themselves. The will always reaches beyond temporary satisfaction. It longs for something lasting, something complete, something that can never be taken away. And that realization leads to another profound question. If human beings naturally seek happiness, what kind of happiness can truly fulfill us? Is success enough? Is pleasure enough? Can wealth satisfy the deepest longing of the soul? Or are we searching for something greater without even realizing it? These questions lead us into one of the most beautiful parts of Aquinas' philosophy. Not the question of freedom, but the question of how to live well. Because if freedom is the power to choose, then morality is the wisdom to choose rightly. And that is where our journey continues. Natural law. Why do we know right from wrong? Imagine you're walking down an empty street late at night. No cámaras, no police, no witnesses. No one would ever know what you are about to do. In that moment, would anything still be right or wrong? Or does morality disappear the moment no one is watching? It is one of the oldest questions in human history. Are good and evil merely inventions of society? Did human beings create morality? Or did we discover it? If every culture has different customs, different traditions, different laws, can there really be such a thing as objective right and wrong? Many people today answer, no. They argue that morality changes with time. What one generation calls justice, another generation may call oppression. What one culture celebrates, another condemns. From this perspective, morality appears to be nothing more than a human agreement. Useful, perhaps, but ultimately invented. Thomas Aquinas saw the world differently. He believed that beneath every law, beneath every culture, beneath every civilization, there exists a deeper moral order, not written by kings, not voted on by governments, not created by philosophers, but woven into reality itself. He called this natural law. At first, the phrase can be confusing. When we hear the word law, we usually think of governments, traffic laws, criminal laws, constitutions, rules enforced by courts. But Aquinas meant something entirely different. Imagine dropping a stone from your hand. It falls toward the earth, not because someone commands it, not because it chooses to, but because gravity reflects the natural order of the universe. Now imagine planting an acorn in fertile soil. It grows into an oak tree, never into a rose, never into an eagle. Everything in nature seems directed toward certain ends, toward certain purposes, toward a way of flourishing according to what it is. A fish flourishes in water. A bird flourishes in the sky. A tree flourishes when its roots reach deep into the earth. Each living thing has a nature, and according to Aquinas, understanding that nature helps us understand what is good for it. Now, consider human beings. What kind of creature are we? Unlike animals, we do more than survive. We ask questions. We seek knowledge. We create music. We build civilizations. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We dream about the future. We reflect on the past. Most importantly, we search for meaning. Aquinas believed these uniquely human capacities reveal something about our nature. If we possess reason, then living according to reason is part of what it means to flourish as human beings. Just as a tree flourishes by growing strong roots, a human being flourishes by living in harmony with truth, wisdom, justice, and love. Morality is not an arbitrary list of rules. It is a guide for becoming fully human. Think of a violin. An expensive violin can produce breathtaking music, but only if it is tuned correctly. Ignore the strings. mistreat the instrument, use it carelessly, and even the finest violin will produce only noise. The violin hasn't become evil. It simply isn't functioning according to its purpose. Aquinas believed human life works in much the same way. Every person possesses extraordinary potential, but whether that potential becomes reality depends on how we live. When we live against our deepest nature, we become divided, restless, confused. When we live in harmony with what we were made for, we flourish. This, for Aquinas, is the heart of morality. Not restriction, but fulfillment. One of Aquinas' most famous principles is surprisingly simple. Good is to be done and pursued, and evil is to be avoided. At first, it almost sounds too obvious. Of course we should pursue good, but Aquinas believed this simple principle lies beneath every moral decision. Every human action aims towards something we perceive as good. Even when people commit terrible acts, they usually believe they are gaining something valuable. Power, pleasure, security, revenge, recognition. The tragedy is not that human beings desire the good. The tragedy is that we often mistake lesser goods for greater ones. We choose immediate satisfaction over lasting fulfillment, temporary pleasure over lasting peace, appearance over truth, comfort over courage. And in doing so, we slowly move away from the kind of life that allows us to flourish. Imagine à travers le crossing a vaste désert. In the distance, they see what appears to be water. Desperate with thirst, they run toward it, only to discover it was a mirage. The desire for water was not wrong. The mistake was confusing illusion with reality. Aquinas believed much of human suffering follows the same pattern. We chase wealth, believing it will complete us. We chase status, believing it will bring lasting happiness. We chase pleasure, believing it will silence the emptiness inside us. Sometimes these things bring temporary satisfaction, but eventually the thirst returns. Because the deepest desires of the human heart cannot be satisfied by temporary goods alone. This is why Aquinas insisted that morality is not the enemy of happiness. It is the path toward it. Imagine trying to build a house while ignoring the laws of engineering. You can sincerely believe your design will stand, but if it ignores reality, it will collapse. Reality does not bend to our wishes. For Aquinas, morality works in the same way. Natural law is not imposed from outside. It reflects the structure of human nature itself. To violate it is not merely to break a rule. It is to act against the very conditions that allow human beings to flourish. This idea was revolutionary because it meant moral truths do not depend entirely on power. A king cannot simply declare injustice to be justice. A government cannot redefine truth by majority vote. A society may legalize cruelty, but legality alone does not make cruelty good. According to Aquinas, there exists a higher standard by which every human law can be judged, and that standard is rooted in the nature of reality itself. It is a bold claim, one that has influenced legal systems, political philosophy, and human rights for centuries. But it also raises difficult questions. If natural law is written into human nature, why do people disagree so deeply about morality? Why do good people reach different conclusions? And if reason can guide us toward the good, why do we continue choosing evil? Those questions take us even deeper into Aquinas' understanding of the human condition. If natural law is truly written into human nature, why doesn't everyone agree about what is right? Look around the world. One society praises an action, another condemns it. Laws change, customs evolve, moral debates seem endless. If there really is an objective moral order, why is there so much disagreement? Thomas Aquinas did not ignore this problem. In fact, he expected it, because knowing what is good and choosing what is good are not always the same thing. Imagine holding a perfectly accurate map. The map tells you exactly where to go, but if you refuse to follow it, or if you misread it, you can still become lost. The problem is not with the map. The problem lies in the traveler. Aquinas believed human reason works in much the same way. We are naturally capable of recognizing certain basic moral truths. That innocent people should not be harmed. That promises matter. that justice is better than injustice, that truth is better than deception. These principles form the foundation of natural law. But human beings are not perfect. Our judgments are clouded by fear, by pride, by anger, by selfishness, by desire. We often know the better path, yet choose another one, not because morality has disappeared, but because our vision has become blurred. Think of a compass. When it is working properly, it points north, but place a powerful magnet beside it, and the needle begins to drift. The compass has not stopped existing. It has been influenced by another force. Aquinas believes something similar happens within the human heart. Our conscience points toward the good, but greed can distort it. Hatred can distort it. Envy can distort it. Power can distort it. Little by little, the voice of reason grows quieter until we begin calling good evil and evil good. History provides countless examples. Ordinary people have committed extraordinary acts of cruelty while convincing themselves they were justified. That possibility terrified Aquinas, because it revealed that intelligence alone is not enough. A brilliant mind can still serve destructive desires. Knowledge without virtue can become dangerous. This is why Aquinas believed character matters as much as intellect. The more we practice honesty, the easier honesty becomes. The more we practice justice, the more naturally we recognize it. Virtue sharpens our moral vision. Vice slowly blinds it. This understanding transformed Aquinas' view of education. Education was never simply about filling the mind with information. It was about forming the whole person. A truly educated individual does not merely know facts. They become wiser, more disciplined, more compassionate, better able to recognize truth. In many ways, Aquinas believed that morality resembles learning a musical instrument. At first, every note requires effort. Every movement feels awkward. But with practice, the hands begin to move naturally. The musician no longer struggles with every decision. The right action becomes almost instinctive. The moral life develops in the same way. We train ourselves, not simply to perform good actions, but to become good people. Yet there's another question hiding beneath all of this. Why should anyone choose the good in the first place? Imagine a person who becomes wealthy through dishonesty, another who gains power through violence, another who manipulates everyone around them and appears to succeed. If evil sometimes brings success, why not embrace it? Aquinas answered with a simple but profound observation. Success is not the same as flourishing. A tree may survive for years with diseased roots, but eventually, the damage reveals itself. Likewise, a human life can appear successful on the surface while quietly collapsing within. Money cannot purchase peace of mind. Power cannot eliminate guilt. Fame cannot cure loneliness. Pleasure cannot permanently satisfy the human heart. Aquinas believed every immoral act wounds the person committing it, not always immediately, not always visibly, but inevitably, because every choice shapes the soul. Justice is not merely about protecting society. It is about protecting the person you are becoming. Centuries later, modern psychology would uncover something remarkably similar. Habits reshape the brain. Repeated actions influence personality. The choices we make today become the automatic responses of tomorrow. Aquinas understood this long before neuroscience existed. He believed that every decision leaves a mark upon us. You are never exactly the same person after choosing generosity instead of selfishness, or honesty instead of deceit. Every action becomes part of your character. In that sense, we are always creating ourselves. Natural law also explains why human beings across history have shared certain moral intuitions despite enormous cultural differences. Parents instinctively protect their children. People admire courage. They praise loyalty. They condemn betrayal. Cultures disagree about many things. But beneath those differences, certain values appear again and again. Aquinas believed this was no coincidence. It reflected the moral structure built into human nature itself. Not everyone understands it perfectly. Not everyone lives by it consistently. But its presence can still be recognized. like a melody heard faintly beneath the noise of the world. Of course, modern philosophers have challenged Aquinas. Some argue that morality evolved through natural selection. Others believe ethical values are entirely social constructions. Still others insist there is no objective morality at all. These debates continue today, and they are unlikely to end anytime soon. Yet Aquinas' central question remains as powerful as ever. When you call something unjust, what standard are you using? When you say an action is truly wrong, are you expressing a preference or discovering a truth? That question continues to shape philosophy, politics, law, and ethics even in the 21st century. For Aquinas, morality was never about blind obedience. It was about becoming the kind of person capable of living well. Because every law, every virtue, every moral principle ultimately points toward one goal: human flourishing. But then another question emerges. If morality guides us toward happiness, what kind of happiness can actually satisfy the human soul? Can wealth do it? Can pleasure? Can success? Or are we chasing shadows while the thing we truly seek lies somewhere else entirely? That question leads us into one of the most beautiful and inspiring chapters of Aquinas' philosophy. Not simply how to live, but what we are ultimately living for. The highest good. What if everything you've been chasing was never capable of making you happy? Not because success is meaningless, not because money has no value, not because love, achievement, or pleasure are bad, but because none of them were ever meant to carry the weight of your deepest longing. Think back to a moment you spent years waiting for. Graduation, your first paycheck, a promotion, buying something you always wanted, reaching a goal you believed would change your life forever. For a brief moment, it felt exactly as you imagined. The excitement was real. The satisfaction was genuine. But then something strange happened. Life continued. A new desire appeared. A new goal replaced the old one. And the happiness you thought would last forever slowly became ordinary. Why? Why do human beings keep reaching the summit, only to discover another mountain waiting in the distance? Thomas Aquinas believed this was not a flaw in human nature. It was a clue pointing toward the deepest truth about the human heart. Because every person, whether rich or poor, religious or skeptical, young or old, is searching for the same thing: happiness. Not temporary pleasure, not a passing emotion, but a happiness so complete, so lasting, that nothing else would ever be needed. The ancient Greeks called it eudaimonia, human flourishing. Aquinas called it beatitude, perfect happiness, the fulfillment of everything the human soul has ever desired. But before we can understand where that happiness is found, we must first understand where it is not. Imagine drinking salt water while stranded at sea. At first, it seems to satisfy your thirst. But the more you drink, the thirstier you become. Some desires work the same way. They promise satisfaction, yet leave us wanting even more. Aquinas looked carefully at the things people dedicate their lives to: wealth, power, fame, pleasure, knowledge. Each offers something valuable, yet none seems capable of fully satisfying the human heart. Take wealth. Money can provide comfort, security, opportunity. It can ease suffering and open doors that poverty keeps shut. Aquinas never claimed money was evil, but he asked a simple question. Have you ever met someone who said, "I have enough money. I desire nothing more"? For most people, the answer is no. The more we possess, the more possibilities appear. Wealth solves many problems, but it often creates new desires. It is a useful tool, not the final destination. What about power? Throughout history, emperors conquered continents. Kings ruled nations. Political leaders shaped civilizations. Yet many of the most powerful people who ever lived remained deeply anxious. They feared losing what they possessed. They distrusted those around them. They spent their lives protecting power rather than enjoying it. Power can command armies, but it cannot command peace of mind. Then there is fame. Perhaps never before in history have so many people dreamed of becoming known. Millions de followers, recognition, influence. the hope that if enough people admire them, they will finally feel complete. And yet countless celebrities have admitted that public admiration did not silence their loneliness. The applause eventually fades. The spotlight moves. The crowd finds someone new. Fame may satisfy the ego, but it rarely satisfies the soul. Pleasure presents another mystery. A delicious meal, a beautiful sunset, music that gives you chills, time spent with someone you love. These experiences are genuine gifts. Aquinas never rejected pleasure. He believed pleasure naturally accompanies many good things. The problem begins when pleasure becomes life's highest purpose. Because pleasure always passes. The meal ends. The song finishes. The vacation becomes a memory. If happiness depends entirely upon experiences that cannot last, then happiness itself becomes fragile, always slipping through our fingers, always demanding another moment, another purchase, another achievement, another distraction, even knowledge, something Aquinas deeply loved, cannot completely satisfy us. Every answer produces new questions. Every discovery reveals another mystery. The more humanity learns about the universe, the more astonishing the universe becomes. Knowledge nourishes the intellect, but even the greatest philosopher eventually reaches the limits of understanding. There is always more to know. So Aquinas arrived at a remarkable conclusion. None of these things are bad. In fact, many are genuinely good. The mistake is expecting finite things to satisfy an infinite longing. Imagine trying to fill the ocean with a single bucket of water. The bucket is real. The water is real. But it was never enough. Likewise, every created good reflects something beautiful. Yet none can carry the full weight of the human heart. Have you ever noticed how every fulfilled desire eventually gives birth to another? You finish reading one book and begin searching for the next. You buy the car you wanted, then notice a newer model. You achieve one dream, only to imagine another. Why does this happen? Aquinas believed the answer lies within human nature itself. Our desires point beyond every temporary object. Like a compass pointing north, the human soul naturally seeks something ultimate, something unlimited, something that cannot be lost. This is why no finite achievement ever feels completely enough. Not because life is empty, but because the deepest desire of the soul is greater than anything the world alone can offer. If Aquinas is right, then our endless search for happiness is not evidence that life is meaningless. It is evidence that we were made for something greater. But what is that something? What kind of happiness could possibly satisfy a being whose desires seem limitless? That question would become the heart of Aquinas' entire philosophy, and its answer would forever change the meaning of the good life. So if wealth is not enough, if power is not enough, if pleasure is not enough, if fame is not enough, then what is the human heart actually searching for? Thomas Aquinas believed the answer lies hidden within every desire we have ever experienced. Think about the last time you wanted something desperately. Perhaps it was a new job, a relationship, a house, a dream you had pursued for years. When you finally achieved it, the satisfaction was real, but it didn't last forever. Soon, another goal appeared on the horizon, another dream, another ambition. This endless movement from one desire to another fascinated Aquinas, because he believed every human desire points beyond itself. Every finite good awakens the hope for a greater one. Every happiness hints at a happiness that has not yet been found. Imagine climbing a mountain before sunrise. With every step, the view becomes more beautiful. You reach one ridge, believing you've arrived. But beyond it, another peak rises. Then another. Then another. The journey continues. Life often feels exactly like that. We keep climbing, convinced the next achievement will finally satisfy us. Yet the horizon always moves. For Aquinas, this wasn't a reason for despair. It was evidence that the human soul is oriented towards something infinite. He argued that every person seeks what philosophers call the highest good, not merely one good among many, but the good that completes all the others, a good that leaves nothing essential still to be desired. Because if perfect happiness exists, it cannot be temporary. It cannot depend on luck. It cannot disappear with age. It cannot be taken away by illness, failure, or death. Otherwise, it is not truly perfect. This was Aquinas' remarkable insight. Anything that can be lost cannot be our ultimate source of happiness. Think about it. If your happiness depends entirely on your career, what happens when you retire? If it depends entirely on beauty, what happens when time changes your appearance? If it depends entirely on health, what happens when sickness comes? If it depends entirely on another person, what happens when they leave or die? Aquinas was not saying these things have no value. He treasured friendship, knowledge, family, beauty. He simply believed they were too fragile to carry the weight of the human soul's deepest longing. So where does that longing lead? For Aquinas, it leads toward God. Not simply because God commands the universe. Not simply because God created humanity, but because God alone is unlimited. Every created thing reflects goodness. But only God, Aquinas believed, is goodness itself. Every beautiful thing reflects beauty, but only God is beauty itself. Every true statement reflects truth, but only God is truth itself. If the human soul seeks perfect goodness, perfect truth, and perfect beauty, then its journey ultimately points toward the one in whom those realities exist completely. This is what Aquinas called beatitude, perfect happiness, not a passing emotion, not constant excitement, but the complete fulfillment of a human person. He believed that every restless desire, every search for meaning, every longing for lasting love, ultimately finds its end there. Whether or not you share Aquinas' conclusion, his diagnosis of the human condition is difficult to ignore. We are restless creatures. We dream beyond our circumstances. We imagine better futures. We refuse to be satisfied for long. The French philosopher Blaise Pascal, writing centuries after Aquinas, expressed a similar idea when he described a God-shaped vacuum in the human heart. The language is different, but the insight is remarkably close. Human beings seem to desire more than the world alone can provide. This does not mean we should reject the world. Quite the opposite. Aquinas believed the world is filled with genuine goods. Friendship matters. Family matters. Art matters. Science matters. Work matters. Laughter matters. These are not distractions from the good life. They are gifts, but they are signposts rather than destinations. Imagine driving across the American Southwest. You pass a sign pointing toward the Grand Canyon. The sign is valuable. Without it, you might lose your way. But no one mistakes the sign for the canyon itself. In the same way, Aquinas believed the beautiful things of this world point beyond themselves. They awaken gratitude, wonder, love, but they were never meant to become our ultimate destination. This perspective changes how we experience success and failure. Success becomes something to appreciate, not something to worship. Failure becomes painful, but not final, because neither defines the deepest meaning of your life. Your worth is no longer measured by applause, by possessions, by social status, or by comparison with others. Instead, Aquinas invites us to measure life by a different standard. Are you becoming wiser, more truthful, more compassionate, more capable of loving what is genuinely good? These questions reach far deeper than any resume ever could. Perhaps this explains why some of history's happiest people owned very little, while some of its wealthiest remained profoundly unhappy. The difference was not simply what they possessed. It was what possessed them. When temporary things become ultimate things, disappointment is inevitable. When they are received as gifts rather than idols, they enrich life without enslaving it. As Aquinas' philosophy reaches its highest point, one final question remains. If his ideas have shaped Western civilization for more than 700 years, if they influence theology, philosophy, ethics, law, education, and politics, why do they still matter today? The legacy of Aquinas. Why he still matters today. 700 years ago, a quiet Dominican friar sat with a simple purpose: to understand, not just the world around him, but the deepest questions hidden beneath existence itself. He lived in a time without computers, without modern medicine, without space exploration, without the discoveries that define our age. Yet the questions he asked still echo through universities, churches, philosophy departments, and conversations around the world. What is truth? What does it mean to exist? Are human beings truly free? Can reason discover something beyond the physical world? What is the purpose of life? His name was Thomas Aquinas, and perhaps his greatest achievement was not that he answered every question. It was that he taught humanity how to ask better ones. In the 13th century, Europe was experiencing a remarkable intellectual transformation. Ancient Greek philosophy, especially the works of Aristotle, was being rediscovered. Many thinkers saw a conflict between faith and reason. Some believed that religious belief required rejecting philosophy. Others believed philosophy could explain everything without faith. Aquinas refused to accept this division. For him, truth could never contradict itself. If God is the source of reality, and reason is a gift given to human beings, then both faith and reason must ultimately lead toward truth. This idea became one of Aquinas' greatest contributions. He did not see the mind as an enemy of belief. He saw the search for knowledge as part of humanity's highest calling. This approach changed Western thought forever. Aquinas helped create a framework where theology and philosophy could exist together. His writings became central to medieval universities. His ideas influenced discussions about morality, law, politics, human nature, and the relationship between science and religion. Even thinkers who disagreed with him had to engage with him. To challenge Aquinas, you first had to understand Aquinas. That is the mark of a truly influential thinker. Not that everyone accepts your conclusions, but that your questions become impossible to ignore. 700 years after Aquinas lived, his voice still reaches us, not because he lived in the past, but because he spoke about questions that belong to every age, questions that belong to every person. If this journey through the mind of Thomas Aquinas changed the way you see philosophy, I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? I always enjoy seeing how far these ideas travel and hearing your thoughts. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore more journeys through philosophy, psychology, history, and the greatest thinkers who shaped our world, consider subscribing, because the search for wisdom never truly ends. Until the next journey, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep searching for the truth.